Good morning. We've been posting some of the things I've been making in the kitchen on Facebook, and the response has been great, but people have asked, well, what's the recipe? So last week we posted a French apple cake, and so I thought this morning I'll show you how I make that French apple cake. Start by preheating the oven to 340 degrees. I've taken some parchment paper and lined in a 9-inch springform pan. I'm just going to cut this parchment paper off, and it's nice to do it this way because it gives you a little lip to pull the cake off the tray after it's cooled onto a platter. So now we're going to grease the inside of this. I just use Crisco all the time when I do this. Just take a little bit of this, smear it all over the place, make sure it's evenly coated. Put it on the sides. And that should do for that. Alright, I'm going to set this pan aside, and we're going to be busy with the actual making. So, to make the French apple cake, what makes it French apple? Well, there are tons of apple cake recipes out there, and they're pretty much all the same. What makes this distinctive, and why we call it French apple cake, is that you bake the glaze on. Usually recipes for apple cake call to sprinkle some powdered sugar, or maybe even make a powdered sugar glaze that you put on the cake after it's cooled. In this case, we are actually going to make an egg glaze that we bake into the cake. So let's begin. Into a large mixing bowl, what I've done is I've placed 1 cup of all-purpose flour, and then a half a cup of cake flour. Now, originally when I started working on this recipe, it called for all-purpose flour. And I found that what ended up happening was that it was too coarse, a little too rustic for my taste. So I added the cake flour, and now it's a nice crumb to this cake. So into the cup of all-purpose flour and the half a cup of cake flour, I'm putting 4 teaspoons of baking powder. Into that, I'm going to also add a pinch of salt. What is a pinch? It's a pinch, however you want, maybe a little bit less than a teaspoon. All right? So we're going to then mix all these things together. Okay, now I've added sugar to the flour mixture, stirring it in. Typically, when you make the cake, you'll take your sugar and cream it with your butter. But in this recipe, we do it this way. So I've got all the ingredients fully incorporated, and I set this aside, and I'm going to start on my wet ingredients. So my wet ingredients, we begin with 3 room temperature eggs. Now I know that some people like to break the eggs in a separate container, but I don't. It's just one more dish I have to clean. I'm really thrilled about that. So we got our 3 eggs in here, and to the egg mixture, I am going to add milk and butter. So let's whip these up. Melted butter, stick of melted butter. I'm going to whip this. I'm going to get close with the camera on this one. I'm going to whip this until it kind of turns opaque, a little paler yellow. Make sure that it's all, otherwise you're going to have strands of egg white in your cake, and that's not cool. Okay, and then we're going to put 3/4 cup of whole milk. And that's our wet ingredients. So now all we have to do, this is as simple as cake to us. We just have to put the wet ingredients with the dry ingredients. And so you see, I'm going to mix this. I'm going to do it in 2 stages. I'm not using any electrical appliances for this. Just all doing this by hand. The rest of our wet ingredient. Now, if you're on real TV, you wouldn't have this mess, but on St. John the Evangelist TV, especially as we just get started with this, we're going to have these problems. So I'm going to continue to do this. You know, I think that we're made in God's image, and part of being made in God's image is this need to create. And I think obviously the most obvious way that human beings create is procreation. They make other versions of themselves. So as a celibate priest, that just wouldn't be appropriate. So what I find is my need to create in gardening and baking and soap making and the different things that I do is an expression of that inner drive to create something, because that's part of God that's inside of me. And I used to think that I wasn't very creative at all. I mean, I grew up with my brother Bob and my sister Therese, who are just like amazing artists and have minds that I can't even hope to compete with. And I think that's one of the mistakes that people make, is they think that they compare themselves to other people, and they think, well, I can't do these sort of things. But I found that we're all creative and in our own way. We just have to find what that way is. So now the batter is all mixed up, and we're going to take our greased pan, and I'm going to put about half the batter in the bottom. Okay, and then I'm just going to come close with the camera. Just going to kind of this little technique of stirring it around until it gets all to the end. You see, it's a very thin layer of cake. That's okay. And then we're going to take our apples. And what I've done with these apples, there's 3 apples. There is a Granny Smith apple and 2 Gala apples. So 3 apples altogether. It depends on the size of the apple. And so what I've done is I've taken them, cored them, and I've cut them into cubes. So a lot of apple cake recipes call for slicing the apples to do like a pretty design on the top. This recipe doesn't call for that. I'm not so interested in fancy. I'm more interested in taste, okay? So to these cored and chopped apples, I'm going to add 1 tablespoon of cinnamon and 1/4 cup of brown sugar. I'm just going to dump that in there. Just take a spoon and I'm going to toss this in so they're all evenly coated. Oh, does that smell good? Now, some people, a lot of these apple cake recipes don't call for any cinnamon, which I thought was a sin, because what would apple and cinnamon, they just go together. So you may not want as much cinnamon in yours as I do, so you can adjust the recipe accordingly. So I'm just going to take all these cubes and I'm going to pour them over the top of this and spread them out as evenly as I can. Okay, you see that's 3 apples, 3 small apples. Goes there. I'm going to take the rest of the batter. We're going to spread that just like we did the bottom layer as best we can. Now, the apples are going to grab a hold of the batter, but that's okay. It's all going to go in the same place. So just sort of gently move this around. Now, it doesn't look like much, but you've got those 3 tablespoons or teaspoons of baking powder, and that's really going to cause this cake to rise up. So I'm just trying to get them. If you smear some cinnamon in there, that's all the better, okay? So that is basically done. So I'm now going to take this and put it in our preheated oven. Now, every oven is slightly different. You have to depend on, you have to know your own oven. I have both a gas oven and an electric oven, and I use them differently because they both work differently. So I will keep this in here for probably about 40 minutes, but it may be shorter or longer depending on your oven. And when it comes out, we're going to put the glaze on a few minutes before the cake is finished, and we'll be back to show you how to do that. It's been in the oven for almost 40 minutes, and it's time to add the walnuts. So let's pull the cake out. Done. It's bringing back to touch. And I'm going to sprinkle walnuts over the top of this. This is about 1.5 cups of walnuts. And what we want to do is put it back in the oven and let some of the essential oils of the walnuts leach out. It'll also help preserve them in place. Put that back in. And we'll come back in about 3 or 4 minutes. So now we're going to make the glaze. And so again, we're going to add 1 room temperature egg. Okay. To that, we're going to put the zest of 1 lemon. I actually love zesting lemons. It smells so good. And lemon, no matter whether it be savory or baking, just seems to brighten the flavor of whatever you're preparing. So you always have to be careful not to get the white part. You just want the zest. It packs a lot of flavor. And also, whereas when you try to use like a lemon flavoring, it often comes off as very artificial. This does not. It comes very natural. And again, I add this to green beans, to all sorts of things, to meats. Okay. The timer's telling us it's time to take that out. So I'm going to beat this egg. I'm going to come close and really again until it kind of turns pale. All right, now I'm going to add, this is 1/2 cup of granulated sugar. Mix those two together. You can see it's going to get thicker, almost like a paste. Into that, I'm going to add, now this is a 1/2 stick of melted butter. We've let it kind of cool. You don't want to put too hot. You don't want your melted butter too hot as it goes into egg, because you'll cook your egg and you don't want to do that. So I'm slowly putting this all in here. All right. Now you see it's even thickened even more. Now I need to get a spatula and then I'm going to pull over this way so you can see. I'm going to take the cake out one more time. It seems like a lot of trouble taking it in and out, but really the end product is worth it. I take my whisk out of here, and then using the paddle, just kind of protect it so it doesn't go too much in one area. You know how to do this, I'm sure. Then we're just going to try to evenly spread this around. It's gonna move on its own. But we want to try to make sure that all the corners, the end gets as much of this as we can get around here. All right, like I say, it will spread. Now that's going to go back into the oven for about another 15 minutes until that is clear. 15 minutes and the cake is finally ready to come out. You can see that yellow glaze turn white. Come close. Now I'm going to sit that here for about 10 or 15 more minutes. I'm going to take a knife, I'm going to go around the side, then I'm going to reheat the spring form pan, and I'd let it cool after that for another maybe 30-40 minutes. But because I knew you would come today, I got up early this morning and I made one already. And so thought we would taste it. But as you know, I can't eat this kind of food. I can barely have a little taste of it. I make it, but I can't eat it because I'm already too fat. So there's always people around the rectory, so we're going to invite some of these people to come in and taste this and give their honest opinion whether it's worth the effort. Rectory rats, come in! Rectory rats! So food. Alright, let's see what they think. Go ahead. Is it moist?
That's good. Gosh, that's really good.
Very.
Wow. Really amazing.
Charlie, what do you think?
Very good. Always is.
I'm enjoying it.
You can't get this at any bakery.
So there you are. French apple cake. I hope you enjoy it.
So if you can invite 25 people to like our Facebook page, St. John Parish, let us know who you invited. You can direct message us. You can email me. You'll see my email at the bottom of this video. Let us know who you invited. If they like, you're in the running to win one of these delicious cakes. So get to inviting.
Don't want to miss out on that.